Good morning, everybody. Always nice to see all the faces joining us on a Tuesday. We have got two fabulous speakers for you today. All right, so we will kick off because, as we know, time is precious. We have a lot to cover in these sessions. We have the wonderful Donald from HMRC, who's going to be presenting first, obviously talking all things scams and kind of what to look out for and information around students and scams. We have Detective Sergeant Chris Buckingham from City of London Police, who will also then be following on after that. And so we're going to look to do questions at the end. And see how we go to try and cover as much information as we can. I will hand over to Donald.
Thank you, Danielle, and welcome everybody. It's lovely to meet you all virtually this morning. Just really quickly, I'm Donald Willer. I'm the Customer Protection Lead at HMRC, working in cyber security operations, trying to keep people safe from phishing and HMRC related brand issues. So that's a quick overview. Can we move on, please? To the next slide. Okay, so what I want to talk to you about a little bit today is phishing. I know most people know what phishing is, and you've probably all seen, phishing email, from time to time, but phishing does come in various guises. It's not just emails, it can be SMS, it can be telephone contact. And what I really want to talk to you about is, the student community. Research does show that students and the younger demographic are actually more vulnerable to fraud. So it is quite an important message. I mean, in terms of HMRC specific scams, it could be the first time that students have any interaction with the tax authority. It could be that they've never seen any kind of genuine communications from HMRC, and most people could expect some kind of contact from the tax man. So therefore, it could be quite easy to fall victim to a HMRC branded scam, and we want to keep your students safe. So can we move on, please, Daniel? Okay, so I want to just dive into what could happen. I want to try and bring it to life for you, if that's possible. Can we move on again, please? Okay, so what we've got here is an actual example of a phishing campaign that's been sent out to student communities. You'll see on the left-hand side is a phishing email, and this is, it is a genuine phishing campaign that was circulated a little while ago, and we do see these quite often. This one's targeting specific universities, and just a little bit of an example of what happens if people click on the link, how you take them through to to the landing page on the right hand side. We want the students to be aware of this. So if we can move on to the next page. And hopefully some messages here that I can help the student community with. So if we just click once, if we just click once first of all, we should, So here, sometimes if you hover over the from in the phishing email, you'll see that actually it's not actually come from where you think it might have done. So these are some things to look out for. Can click again, please, Daniel? There you go. Sometimes you'll see quite often that the subject looks suspicious, things to look out for. Moving on again. Quite often, and sometimes you'll see poor grammar, sort of grammar that you might not expect to see from a tax authority or other organisations. And that's caused quite a lot of phishing campaigns generally outside of the UK. And you might see a suspicious link that wants to take you somewhere that's not gov.uk, and you'll probably see images that have been directly scraped from our genuine gov.uk pages, and some of them are out of date. So these are a few things that your student community can look out for. If we can move on, please, Daniel. What I want to show you next is how criminals might use that information, for their own nefarious purposes. We can move on to the next slide, please. So here on the left-hand side, we've got poor Vicky, the victim. As you can see, she's picked up the phishing email. She thought it was a genuine contact from the tax authority, so she's clicked on the link. She's input all of her personal and financial information. So what happens to that? So starting from left to right, that information gets sent to the criminal. If we move down to the bottom right, yeah, just there. So the criminal's got the financial information. So, first of all, money's going to be stolen from poor Vicky's account, who can't really afford that anyway. Moving up to the middle, the criminal can also use all that lovely personal information and sell that on the dark web to people that could use that for things like identity theft. And also, quite often, what people don't realise is a lot of phishing emails do actually contain malware. And that malware could just sit on Vicky's computer, but the next time she logs onto either one of the banking apps or on the other login IDs, the malware tends to wake up, and what it will do is start scraping all that information and sending that back to the criminal as well. In the bottom left-hand corner, you're probably thinking, what's this criminal? So what tends to happen with phishing campaigns are the criminals that send out the phishing campaigns, not always the criminals that produce the phishing kits, as we call them. There are other criminals that develop these this kind of software. It's kind of a software as a service for criminals, and what they tend to do is they'll put bits of code into that software so that any of the information that's being sold to other criminals also gets sent back to them. So not only is a criminal who's organising the phishing campaign getting all that information, so is a criminal that produced the phishing kit. So effectively, all that data is getting circulated lots and lots of times to different criminal and sometimes organised criminal gangs. Okay, thank you, Daniel. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, I want to talk about a little bit as well, not just phishing, but other frauds that could impact students. We know that students use social media a lot, and the young demographic. Here are some examples of specific posts on different social media channels that that do directly impact students. What we've got here is a request for maybe some students to sell personal and financial information for money, and that is the like unique taxpayer reference numbers that criminals will ask students to set up. Criminals will then use that information to commit fraud directly against HMRC or other organisations, or students might be asked to set up bank accounts for nefarious purposes that criminals can use to as kind of as money mules. All these frauds are criminally prosecutable, so it's worth advising your students that whilst it could be tempting to make some fast money, it could also land them into a lot of trouble. And not only could it land them into a lot of trouble, but it could really impact their credit status in future years, because again, like with phishing, criminals use this information for all kinds of nefarious purposes. So, it might seem like a quick win at that moment in time, but it could have lots of serious impacts, getting things like mortgages, so on and so forth later on. All this can be reported to HMRC, but also can report to Action Fraud on this type of criminal activity. I'm going to give you some reporting notes a little bit further on, but these are some of the things to look out for that that students could be enticed by. Okay, thank you, Daniel. Can we move on to the next slide, please? Okay, so what's HMRC doing? Well, in HMRC, we really do try and work hard to keep our customers safe. We have our own reporting routes. We've got a mailbox, which you can see there is in that slide for phishing at hmrc.gov.uk. You can report phishing emails to us directly. There are other reporting routes, but this helps us to take action to remove the sites. We always try and get back to customers within 24 hours, and we stick to that key performance indicator quite rigidly. We work closely with agencies and law enforcement to take action against criminals, and we've had quite a bit of success. You might be able to see that from the little graph at the bottom of this page that actually shows that we have helped get people arrested to stop various frauds, whether that's text message frauds or call center kind of frauds. We've had lots and lots of success. We've even developed our own tooling service, which allows us to quickly and actively help keep customers safe. We've got lots and lots of information on gov.uk around the latest scams that are in use by criminals. Members of the public and students can go to gov.uk and have a look at some of those scams. And we've even got a specific reporting channel for telephone contact. Thank you. Can we move on to the next slide? Now, this is a slide that I would really love for you guys to share with your student communities. It could be like a little poster, or I could just chop it and put it into an email. But these are some of the sort of high level things that we advise our customers and obviously students to do. If you do receive something that seems suspicious, take a bit of time. You don't have to act straight away. Criminals want you to act straight away. They try and catch people or panic people into making fast decisions. Take a moment. You can challenge something if it doesn't look right by contacting us directly for anything that's HMRC related. So if your students have got a suspicious email that they're not sure about, if you send it to us, we'll confirm whether it's phishing or whether it's genuine. If they get a suspicious text message, we've got a short code referral route at 60599 where students can report messages. And as mentioned earlier, we also have a channel for reporting suspicious telephone calls. So yeah, if we can just reiterate these messages, tell your students to stop, challenge and protect, we can help keep them safe online. Okay, thank you. That's a quick canter through some of the messages I wanted to share with you. So hopefully that'll be useful to share that with your student community.
Thank you, Donald, for that. Hopefully a lot of food for thought. And again, if you have questions as we go along, we will hopefully have some time at the end. Chris, I know you have just joined us, but we are just about to go into your section.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Detective Sergeant Chris Buckingham of the London Police, involved in outreach and engagement predominantly with regard to National Fraud and Cybercrime Reporting Centre, commonly known as sort of Action Fraud and the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau as a collective. I've been asked to come along today in the virtual sense to give a presentation into predominantly sort of investment and scams regarding students. I think that's pretty much the basis of the presentation. And yes, please, Rosie and team, if you'd like to put on a presentation, because I can't see this side, what's being shown. So.
Oh yeah, we're on yours, Chris. I'm just on the what is an investment fraud screen.
Now this slide here, what is investment fraud? This came about as part of a campaign that we launched. We could only really roll around the City of London as a territorial area with regard to what is investment fraud. And there was two versions. One was for members of the public, and one was for businesses and shared office spaces. And the idea being is that in the square mile and the city more broadly, as a centre of excellence for financial investments, was to alert the public to what they think they're investing into. So, of course, if you're a shared space provider in the city, using mail drop facilities, shared space working, virtual offices and so forth, they're very much susceptible to fraud and cybercrime type activity. So this poster, which I've used in these slides, was a way of highlighting these issues to members of the public and to businesses at large, so that they weren't unwittingly utilised as enablers and facilitators to fraud and cybercrime type activity. So turning to the next slide, you'll see there the picture of the empty office with a chair, and the strap line that I put in with this was anyone could be in your office, and that's exactly the point. So if you're running a virtual office space, who do you really know is at your office? Yes, some may register for mail facilities. Others, of course, will just pretend to be there online. Now, back to the question that was asked, what is investment fraud? Well, investment fraud can be anything really, whereby predominantly money is put into something with regard to expecting to get something back, normally in way of a profit. And what we've seen in the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau across the fraud and cybercrime reporting codes is sort of an exponential growth really in this area as far as the crime is concerned, because investments themselves are perfectly credible, perfectly legal. But of course, where there is opportunity in any legitimate activity, there's also potential for bad actors to exploit this. And investment fraud or investments, I should say, is one such area, because anything you can invest in, certainly with the notion that quite often investments are the longer term, it's not always apparent to begin with that there is a fraud going on there. And some classic examples are cryptocurrency. I'll come on to again in a minute, but other ones are making a bit of a resurgence that we've seen from our reporting trends. Things like whiskey in the barrel, because by the very nature of the product, you're investing in a cask you're not expecting to get a return on for 10 to 15 years, whatever. So someone sends you in the post some certificate of authentication. What does that really mean? It doesn't mean anything, does it, until you go to get your money back out of the investment, and then that's only at that point you know how good it is. So some of the things that we're seeing at the moment in terms of reporting or activity in a bit of a grey area as to how legitimate some of these enterprises are. As I say, whiskey, wine on the vine, renewables. There's lots of investments into renewables, solar panels, wind energy and so forth. Lots of sort of glossy brochures have made their way onto the internet. Lots of well-spoken telephone manner deployed members of staff in what we would otherwise determine to be a bit of a boiler room. But proving these things is a different thing altogether. And quite often, those people that are employed to sit in said venues, be that Canary Wharf, the city, whatever, are attracted in the job advert to, high earning potential, go-getters required, and so on and so forth, attractive bonus scheme and so forth. So they're very much in the catchment of, if they ask no questions, they'll be told no lies. They're there just to pick up the phone and drive the sales, or on the internet, of course, pushing out the LinkedIn adverts, the Instagrams and so forth to try and get people in. And what we've seen as to what may have been traditionally the demographics, as it were, of affected entities for investment fraud is very broader than what anyone might have necessarily stereotypically thought. Generally speaking, I think it'd be fair to say that most people's generalization of these things would be sort of middle-aged, fairly well off, money to spend, timeshares, this sort of stuff, money into fine arts and so forth. But that has shifted. Yes, that's still there, of course, but where students come into the fray is very much of a case of there is no real boundary in a traditional sense now with investments. Investments can be as much as or as little as 50 to 100 quid. And the target group has shifted. As I say, you come away from the sort of traditional glossy brochures, which still exist in some format and online, obviously reaching out to other audiences, certainly on social media, which my presentation should go into. So if we shift down now to the next slide, which would be one of our dashboard, I think that's it, dashboard. That seems to be, that doesn't seem to be right. Okay, if we go down past the pictures, where are we? Yeah, I'll tell you what, if we come down to the slide of role of social media with investment fraud, probably a bit more apt for what we're talking about, I'd have thought, actually, and I'll come back to my others in a moment. Yeah, so the reach out group now as the affected group is much broader than it used to be, and so very much 18 and onwards, really, access to social media, Instagram, LinkedIn, and there's lots of sort of cross marketing as well. So as much as there's lots of sort of clickbait type adverts out there, get rich quick schemes, certainly in the crypto world, lots of Elon Musk endorsements and so on. And we're also seeing a rise in the so-called education sector of crypto trading, whereby, you know, you'll get entities that say they're not there to invest themselves, but they are the educators, and they'll show you how to trade, and they'll take you through some online courses. And some of that is dubious, to say the least. Where it then takes a step further is when said education firms will then say, I'll tell you what, you know, you've done well in the basic package. We can now trade on your behalf. Give us £1,000 up front and we'll do the trading for you. All we need is access to your computer. So they will initially get the victim, we call them that, so that's what they're going to become, to install the remote access tools on the sort of computer, software-based things. And then from there on, they can install all number of apps. And I won't throw different brands under the bus, but there are plenty of financial institution type apps, we say, and payment type facilities that can be easily added via remote access tools onto a desktop, laptop, tablet, mobile phone, whatever. More mobile phones, I'd say, for the younger generation, but lots of these apps can be installed on their device, partly with their knowledge and mostly without, for the educators and investment opportunists, should we say, to put a load of various investments in on their behalf. And to be fair, I've got no doubt that various cryptocurrencies are probably being purchased. I don't doubt that whatsoever. But of course, the victim's never going to see them, because the very nature of the crypto coin purchase is once you've got the code, or you know where the code is, it's not accessible to anyone other than the fraudster and they're in a circle. It's of no use to anyone. And the other thing that we have with the issues with regarding the perils of this sort of behaviour is it's largely unregulated. And as I say, the fact that the bad actors get access to people's platforms is a no-no anyway, I think, in any walk of life. But then, of course, they not only go on and invest things not to the knowledge of the victim, they also take out unsecured loans and things like this. You know, and some of the victim demographic, of which are the student age range as well, you know, cannot afford the repayments on these loans. So, you know, they'll get loans taken out on their behalf, and then they're saddled with a load of debt. And of course, they go to contact the people that have set these opportunities up for them, and the phone rings off the hook, and the website's disappeared. So it is a real worry. And the point on social media, of course, is that people, and young people particularly, are absolutely saturated with it, aren't they? And that is unregulated in itself. And I'm on slide 18 here, which is a picture of a lot of the different ones out there, and I've named different ones, but the more prominent ones, you know, TikTok, Tumblrs, and so on. You know, it's very difficult and the role of influencers, be that sort of so-called sort of YouTube celebrities or anyone else, is also quite prominent to endorse these things. And we found as well, investment fraud as an entity has kind of crept into other fraud reporting areas, certainly with regard to sort of romance and dating fraud. So in the traditional landscape there, that sort of meet and greet of new people early on in the sort of budding relationship, one party would say to the other, oh, by the way, have you heard of this? And obviously then make that sideways link up, as it were, into said opportunity for whatever they're going to get out of it. So we have seen it's crossed into other fraud and cyber reporting type areas. So it's not just a traditional one size fits all, this is an investment fraud. There's quite often lots of crossover with other things. Certainly where the sort of student group is concerned, very much the vulnerabilities of it. Crypto, I suppose its unique selling point, or one of them, I suppose, is the fact that it's unregulated. There's a little bit of mystique around it, which makes it attractive. And there are now probably hundreds of coins out there. I mean, there's ones that people are more familiar with than others, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum. But there are dozens of others. I mean, I myself am no expert, but of course there are many risks with lots of them. Personally speaking, without doing lots and lots of research, I certainly wouldn't just jump straight to it. But as I say, the other ploy to this whole angle as to why students and young persons might be at risk more than others is the fact that, you know, looking to make ends meet, cost of living crisis, debts to pay, student loans to cover, and so forth. Sometimes in life you think, oh, this might be worth a punt, and you know, you'll come across these websites, all very glitzy, look and say the right things. And you know, I've read reports whereby the victims will say, for all intents and purposes, the person acted and sounded and presented himself as a financial advisor, or title very similar. Knew all the sales patter, leading them on, and all the rest of it. And of course, the very nature of cryptocurrency not being a tangible thing, with regard to the education piece I was saying a moment about, is the fact you could put up any old thing on the screen, couldn't you? And people would believe it. So if you show a graph to say, oh yeah, it's doing really well, there's a 300% increase, and by tomorrow you'll be at 50 grand. How are they going to know? You know, they might have only put in £400. Who's to know? So yeah, you know, it's done. You know, it's multiplied 1 million times overnight or whatever. But you need to put in more money, and then you start to see more money's invested, and other things will be brought into the equation, such as, oh, you need to pay an admin fee now, we need to pay a release fee. We can't get this money out unless you pay this or that. And then after several payments, sadly, the sort of the penny will drop, as it were, and someone will think, no, this is a scam and a con. And obviously by that point, X amount of money's already been invested, and it's just little to no way of getting that back. Banks are indifferent, I suppose, with the situation, and you can appreciate this, you know, depending on what's happened and so forth, as to their ability to get money back, as it were. If for all of the warning signals, people have still gone on and placed those investments of their own free will in those cases. But it is difficult. Have they been socially engineered, for want of a better phrase, groomed, led into things that they really shouldn't have done, owing probably partly to an over-reliance on the internet and social media generally in life? People live in a bit of a virtual existence, don't they? So the opportunity and the susceptibility and the vulnerability posed is massive. As I say, and the losses as to what people can afford to lose, it varies, doesn't it? What might be a lot of money to one person might not be a lot to another. These things are very much down to the individual susceptibility. But as I say, for me, from what I've seen, some of the biggest risks are brought about by social media and things such as cryptocurrency, and probably wasn't helped when you have celebrities, such as Elon Musk, going out and putting a lot of money into Bitcoin, and then putting something up on his now owned Twitter, to talk about his achievements on there. And for some it's probably a good thing, and I'd imagine if managed properly for a proper investment broker, putting some money in and then quickly taking it off via an adequate off ramp, there's probably gains to be made. But I'd imagine for an awful lot of people, it's exactly the same as these so-called crypto casinos that are popping up. You've probably got much more chance of losing your money than you've ever have gaining anything. And the fact that, I'm on a slide here now, celebrity and influence endorsement with Martin Lewis. I mean, the fact the chap comes out and says he doesn't do ads, would think if you see him on an online commercial, it must be dubious. But then, how often do young people know this? They probably wouldn't do. So because I know this, they wouldn't necessarily know that. So between the likes of having his face, Elon Musk and various others, any other influencer that a younger generation may follow, and they're encouraging them to take part in such things, it's not until it's too late that it's realised that it's a bad thing. So yeah, I've got some other figures I pulled up. So apologies, I can't see what you guys can see, so that's probably not particularly helpful. But I say, coming back to what I was saying earlier about the city and what we call Operation Broadway, an initiative here in the city Broadway, looking at predominantly the city, the square mile, Canary Wharf, and the wider London area, which, when you think about it, globally, and we have victims from all over the world, as you would imagine, have normally been led into something, believing they're investing into a city-led enterprise, be that, whiskey in a barrel, cryptocurrency, renewables, whatever you. It's normally sort of allegedly emanated from a city address. On the website, notably, as per some of my slides here, there'll be pictures of like the Gherkin, Leadenhall Tower, other iconic scenery, Canary Wharf. All goes without saying, doesn't it? Instantly recognizable anywhere you are in the world. So you put some of that stuff on your website, you're halfway there, aren't you? When you're looking at overseas investors, it's half the job done. Of course, from our point of view, we neither have the victim, because they're from potentially overseas, and nor do we have the suspect. It's just people, using that imagery and claiming the address. There are, of course, occasions where a proper address has been used as a mail facility function, but it's rare. It's not a necessity. Certainly for online trading, as I say, in investments, when you know that London has generally been for a number of decades seen as sort of financial centre of excellence. And I'm sure we wouldn't necessarily want it to be sort of renowned as a centre for fraud. Otherwise, all that imagery wouldn't be worth anything. Just the connotations that come with it. So yeah, so that's how we look at things from a Broadway perspective, and how I have an understanding of how some of our sort of victim demographic are from far and wide, and the only connection to the city is the fact that some pictures from here have been used, and a postcode has been splashed on a website. Other than that, there's no real relationship whatsoever. I'm not sure how I'm doing for time, ladies who invited me. Is it we doing some questions now, or I'm going to roll into another slide?
We've got another 5 minutes, Chris.
Okay, I'll tell you what I'll do then. If it's okay with you, I'm going to go to what is my slide 22, the overview, the big sort of, someone described it as like a blockbuster picture.
Yeah, like the blockbuster. That's exactly
what
it.
Blockbuster.
That's where we are.
Yeah, I'll have a tea, please, Bob. Yeah. So here we are then for 5 minutes. My role in the middle, outreach and engagement on behalf of organisations, companies, businesses, small, large, and anyone else. So it's quite a vast beast, really, to say the least. And of course, coming off of this is all the various different departments I represent in some fashion, and relationships with others. So, as an initiative, you see, as I've mentioned there, Broadway as a collective, and the collective part of this is a competent authority. So representation from Companies House, Majesty's Revenue, or His Majesty's now, isn't it, of course, Revenue and Customs, the FCA, of course, us from the police perspective. We'll come together and ultimately look at what's been reported into us. And coming back to the point on investment fraud, we are probably one of the biggest parties of things being popped up. Other bits, of course, come into trading standards, or another party to the group. But I suppose by and large, 80% of the things that get put forward are from the National Fraud Intelligence Bureau, i.e. things that have been reported in for action fraud, the main supplier of material. Of course, the other partners might have those subjects of interest on their books, as it were. So as a collective, we'll look at the different facilitators and enablers of fraud in and around the London area, and then look to disrupt them in some way, in some means, you know, be that a website takedown, a phone number takedown, visit to an office, making sure that someone can't claim to be there, some sort of activity like that, you know, which, if you think about it, realistically, is better than doing nothing, isn't it? Certainly where there's not enough investigative leads to send a job out to a requisite police force, or indeed that we know the threats come from abroad and the only footprint is here, that the very least we can do is shut down the facilitator and enabler as best as we can. So that's a segue into that part. You'll see from the picture there as well, my sort of relationship and liaison with other departments, anything from reporting, through for information sharing, setting up information agreements, or at least assist liaising on them, and our role, the inclusion of the things like the National Economic Crime Centre, as hosted by the NCA. We're a partner to that. That, of course, then leads on some of our initiatives throughout the year, and some of the rolling sort of operations that go on with regards to the highest threat, harm and risk, fraud and cybercrime, be that courier, investment, like we're talking about here today, romance, payment diversion fraud, banking. Well, banking's never present really in many things if you think about it. Money normally starts from a bank account and goes back to one in some fashion. Then we have a lead force operations room that direct what goes on up and down the country. Some of our funded units here in the city, which we're proud to have, which for certain types of fraud and cybercrime, which frankly, if we're honest, wouldn't get investigated unless they were privately funded. I think that's absolutely a good approach. You know, be that insurance fraud, intellectual property, and the banking sector at the moment. And then if you look across the board, other things such as the cyber resilience centres, which sit generally in line with the regions up and down the country. And when I say regions, the amalgamations of different police forces coming together in the regional organised crime units. Those national cyber resilience centres are a way of predominantly small, medium enterprise businesses getting assistance on the internet to better protect their businesses with, generally speaking, cyber dependent crimes. There's a few bits and pieces there. I mean, what I would say, if you've got questions on anything I've said, and or indeed anything of this map or anything else, then please do get in touch. I'm hoping that I've offered something that has been of use to you, a bit of an insight into all sorts of things, and the fact that social media in itself is a bit of a wild west, and is investments, and in particular crypto. Wear oven gloves for handling, I would suggest. Unless there's any more for any more.
That's terrific, Chris. Thank you. It's certainly a fraught area, and we know that as things are getting harder for students financially, that there is a greater temptation perhaps to get involved in things that you might not under different conditions. So really grateful to you for your time and for your expertise, kind of on behalf of everyone in the room who's dealing with this on a daily basis with students who are really just trying to make ends meet. And sometimes the easiest way to do that would seem to be something that perhaps is actually too good to be true, but it's easy to say and harder to sniff it out.
Well, and certainly when they have a friend that might do the induction, because the friend might initially be paid off in order to lure other people in. So all the while the friend's earning some money out of it, they're going to promote it to other people. So, and then when you pull the rug out from under the friend, then the whole thing falls down. But all the while you're paying one person, you hope they entice 10 others. that you have no intent on giving them any money whatsoever. So pay one to encourage 10 others.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, then there's the element of shame and embarrassment for getting caught in something that people will then tell you should have known better, which I think is one of the big challenges.
Which is why reporting is so low, or one of the reasons. I wouldn't say it's the only reason, there's many. But anyway, we've talked forever.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Chris, I think one of the questions, and there are a couple of questions, if somebody no, that's fine. I'll just say it because it's coming through a private channel. If somebody did want to report something but didn't want to give a name and wanted to be private, which you can imagine happens a lot under these conditions, how might somebody go about doing that?
Well, if they don't want to put it as in intelligence, they can go to the Action Fraud platform as is at the moment. I think it's no great secret we're going through another generation of the whole facilities, but at present, if someone wanted just to supply information, i.e. unstructured intelligence, they'd be more than welcome to, and they could do so anonymously if they didn't want to put their details.
So perhaps we'll get that link or that from you so that we can pop it into the newsletter that we sent to everybody along with the slides. I've just got one quick fire question for each of you, and then we will let people get back to their jobs and their next cup of coffee. In terms of if you were speaking to your own child about how to be aware of scams, and if they didn't have somebody that they could go to, what is the one piece of like snappy advice that you would give your own kid about how to keep an eye out and be careful with this? So Chris, let's start with you. What would be one thing that you would say?
Put me on the spot with this.
Of course, that's what we do.
Absolutely. Well, if it's my daughters, I'd say I'd want to see it before you buy it. Definitely. Any transaction online, speak to me directly. But yeah, I don't know, just be vigilant. Do your research, look at things properly. And the other thing about the other partner advice we give with obviously UK Finance, a partner of ours, and Take 5, it's very much that. If you're not sure, literally take 5, come away, do your research, have a chat with people, speak to a variety of different people, take some time out. Don't rush into anything. And that kind of goes for all these sort of opportunistic type fraud type things, because pressure's normally applied, isn't it? Need to do the deal now, and then have a clock running in the bottom of the screen. You know, this deal is only available for the next 3 minutes. If it's that good, why are they applying time?
Yeah,
obviously, absolutely. You know, this is the audience, so that's one of the things I would say. Come away from it, have some fresh air, think about it, and have a chat with someone else and get a different viewpoint. You can't be in that much of a rush to make that purchase or to place that investment. That's what I would say.
Very good. And I can see a few people nodding away. We just need to help people rediscover their impulse control when it comes to a lot of things. And Donald, I guess same question to you. What would be your piece of advice to a child or a friend who perhaps might be going down this path?
It's very similar to Chris. You know, what I say to my kids is, if it's too good to be true, it usually is. You know, if someone's offering you, you know, a lot of money for, you know, just out of the blue, you know, like just take a bit of time to have a look at things, you know, check it. You know, if you're not sure, there's always loads of reporting lines, or you can contact your bank and so on and so forth. But yeah, I think for me the key message, if it's too good to be true, it usually is.
Absolutely. Grandmother's advice remains the best advice that there is. So in our traditional fashion, if I could get everyone to come off their black screen so we can thank our guests. There are still a couple more sessions to come. Hopefully you'll join us all for it. As you know, you will get the newsletter with all of the information, but because we are the cheesiest fintech company in the city of London and possibly the whole of the United Kingdom, I just want to jazz hands our thank you very, very much to Chris and to Donald. Thank you so much for coming. Really such an important topic at the moment. And of course, huge thanks to all of the staff on the call who are dealing with this stuff every single day. As always, we are here for you. If we can be of help at all, give us a holler, but otherwise go and enjoy your sunshine. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you so much, Donald, Chris, a vast amount of information given in a very short period of time, for which we are immensely grateful. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a fantastic afternoon. Take care.